Please pray, people. It's okay. It's gonna be okay, honey. It's okay. It's all right, sweetheart. It's okay. Good Monday to you all. These were the scenes from this last Friday evening at my employer's farm. I'm very passionate about what I do as a farmer here on my own homestead, and the fact that I milk over 200 cows 6 days a week for my precious employers, Stacy and Phil. Unfortunately, this was the tragic scene of events this weekend, as the barn that was built by his father and his grandfather in 1975 burned to the ground. A lot of lives were at risk this weekend, not just including animals. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you my eyewitness account of what happened and the heroics of all the people behind and what I have seen this weekend. Matthew 5:45, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven, for he makes his sun rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. You know, here in the U.S., Christians, for the most part, but just Americans in general, have a belief that we're above reproach, that trial and tribulation are for people in other countries, you know. We never believe that persecution is going to come to our lands. They never believe that war will come to our lands. Most people in the U.S. never think heartache and pain can come to their lives. I saw true heartache and pain this weekend. I saw true struggle to save lives this weekend. It was horrific to watch, scary to watch. It was the most fearful thing I've ever witnessed in my life. But out of watching the storm, out of watching the chaos, I got to see a lot of good too that I will describe in a little bit. At one point, I had to drive a side-by-side with hoses to the back of the barn where my boss, Phil, was urging me to come closer to him, and I just couldn't do it. The heat was so... I had to drive in between the burning barn and the calf barn, and I just couldn't go any further. The heat was so intense. It was so horrific, I couldn't do it. But he was able to walk in the midst of this heat, this searing heat, people. That was a miracle in itself, that this man was running through areas where he shouldn't have been able to run. There was other men that helped to run in the barn, open up gates, and release calves and steers and things like this while people waited outside to get them to safety in a safe place. People were running with hoses because the fire departments were inept. They came and stood there for 20 minutes, didn't even do anything really. But the neighbors, guys, the neighbors came. Out of this tragedy, out of witnessing a cow burned to death, which I had to turn away because the mercy side of me does not like animal suffering, I saw the light. I saw inspiration come from tragedy this weekend. I saw the spirit of humanity, the spirit of love, compassion, and mercy pour out from community members to my employers and their animals on this farm. People, I saw my boss, Phil, Mike, Cole, I saw these men and the neighbors, Amish men, and others running into a burning barn to save cows, to save little calves that are worth $50 to $200. So of course they're worth more, their life is worth more than monetary value. I get that. But guys, get where I'm going at here. Hang in there with me. Now we're told by so many YouTube channel creators, prepper pages, homesteader pages, political analysts, geopolitical analysts, news people, that, there's not much hope for America, because when the government comes, and they'll come, they're just going to take you and yours, and there's nothing you can do about it. The government's going to impose tyranny, and there's just nothing you can do about it. If we get invaded by China, there's nothing you can do about it. Well, I'm telling you, people, I witnessed men and women fight side by side this weekend and go to war. And they ran into the flames of hell to save baby calves. And these talking heads want to try to convince you that there's no hope for this country. They want you to believe that your community members, that your neighbors, your family and friends are all going to turn on everybody, and this nation is just going to fall to pieces. Well, guys, the government, it's gone. The federal government is gone. I'm not fighting to save the federal government, because the federal government that exists today is not what we founded to begin with. Let it fall. Let that ship be buried at sea. I'm talking about our communities. I'm talking about your family and your neighbors. That's what I'm talking about today. Friends, within 5 minutes of this fire starting, there was neighbors, community members. We had community neighbors that came from 5 miles away that came to help. There was people I've never seen before in our community. I have no idea how the Amish got there in 2 minutes. They were actually out there before I even got out of the parlor. I had to stay with the cows for a little bit because I couldn't leave them, because we couldn't let them out. But guys, these folks right here, these men and women, they were the ones who ran into the flames to save these animals. Now, what naysayers want to tell you is that your neighbors aren't going to run into your house while it's burning to save you. Guys, I witnessed people run into a burning barn to save cows. Jesus said there's no greater love than the man that would die for his friend or his neighbor. So nobody is going to convince me that my neighbors aren't going to come to our help if we are in distress. And they will come to you when you're in distress as well. Guys, I want to encourage you today to stop listening to these Debbie Downers, these voices of sorrow and doom and gloom. And I want you to keep your hope. I want you to keep your faith in the fact that Americans, your American brothers and sisters, by and far, especially in the rural communities, are good people, honest people, and they will come alongside you when you need a helping hand. So what is my point to all this? Because if we unite as one, there's nothing our government, there's nothing other governments, there's nothing they could do to us that we could not face together, that we could not overcome together, folks. But you have to be willing to run into that burning house to save your neighbor, or to run into that burning barn to help them save their livestock that they feed their family with. Are you willing to be these people? Or are you that lone wolf out there that thinks he's going to survive on his own wits? Because, that's a fallacy. History proves that the lone wolf does not survive. It's community that survives. And our history, our human history, is one of wickedness, is one of evil, but it is also one of good and triumph. And guys, if we're going to get through what we're facing here today, we need to have that spirit of triumph, that spirit of unity that I witnessed this weekend during this tragedy of a fire. Because I know it's out there, and I know there's more of it than what you think there is. Now, folks, when I talk about standing up and fighting for our communities, I'm not talking about fighting for the federal government. Do not mistake my words. The federal government of this country is lost. It's no longer a republic. It is a tyrannical government that seeks to impose mandates and authoritarianism over you that they don't have the authority to do so. Let that ship be buried at sea, as I have said. Focus on your family, God, and your communities. Build your tribes. Get out there, get into your community, and start talking to people. For Pete's sakes, I watch people go to the local gas stations, and they don't even so much as say hi to the cashier when they hand them money. Start there. Start by saying hi to your cashier, your local, friendly neighbor cashier. Start there. Put a smile on your face, and the next time you go to the park and you see somebody hiking, smile and say hi. Be a light. You know, if you're a believer, and I don't just talk to believers here in Jesus Christ, guys, but especially if you're a believer, you're called to be a light to the earth. You're called to be the salt and light of this earth. That means that you walk up to that little old lady that has the goats or the cats that most people think is crazy. You put a smile on your face and you go share love. You go share compassion. You ask that person, that little old lady, that neighbor, whoever that is, if they need their shovel, their driveway shoveled in the winter, if they need their groceries carried in their house. You know, go to the single dad. Maybe his wife died. Maybe he's divorced. Doesn't matter. Stop being judgmental about what you think why there would be a single dad. And say, hey, maybe little Johnny wants to play with my kids so you can get some work done in the yard or what have you. Or here's a thought, folks. The woman there speaking in the front, along with another lady, they're both moms. There was a need because masks were being mandated in the local school district, and they said, no, we're not going to tolerate this. The kids are being traumatized by these mandates. Some of them, like my nieces, are getting anxiety attacks just from the thought of having to put these muzzles on. So they gathered. They made a Face Good group, and they gathered about 100 parents together where they're going after the school board. They're going to throw them out, and if they're not able to throw them out, there's going to be a huge protest at the high school. The community members are gathering together in numbers. They're uniting at one to combat tyranny, even at the local level. It's these kinds of things, guys, that I encourage you to do. And I encourage you to come back to a place of faith and hope in your fellow humans, especially your community members. And, you know, guys, shut off some of these YouTube channels. I'm not talking about the ones that talk about the what ifs. Now, let me explain this to you. I'm not talking about the voices out there that are warning you about possible threats, but I am talking about the ones that say there's no hope. You can't trust anybody. You need to get those voices out of your mind. Guys, I'm telling you, there's still hope for this country. Our hope is in Jesus Christ. But if you're not a believer, listen, I'm not going to shove them down your throat. That's not my job. That's his job to turn your face to him. But I'm here to tell you there's hope. There is hope for this country, and it's at the local, state, community level. Get out there and get talking to your neighbors. God bless. I hope you enjoyed this video.